good evening, guys. It's Sunday night again, and time to go over what we did the week before and what's coming up. And what's really important this week is the fact that this is week 5, and as I think I explained in the very first introduction, you'll notice I went through the first 4 weeks where we relied on those discussions. This week there will be no discussion, and yet this week there will be what I don't call a midterm exam, I call it a midterm exercise. And I think it's going to give you a chance to do something that's rather topical. It's falling right at the right time of year. It's going to give you a chance to integrate a lot of the things we've been talking about and looking at for the first half of the course with some of this week's new reading and new material. And so let me just back up a little bit about where we were, go ahead into what we are going to talk about this week, and then give you an overview of the assignment and what we expect you to do. And I think that will set the week up for you, and if you do have any questions after that, of course, contact me. But last week we had another one of these really good discussions that you folks seem to just pull off on your own, which is fantastic. And we talked about the whole idea of competitive balance and what does that do for your sport, your team, your league as a business, and how important is it? You know, a lot of leagues, a lot of teams place tremendous value on it. The leagues themselves do, and you saw we have different ways of doing that. Everything from reverse order draft to promotion and relegation to salary caps to luxury taxes, all these kind of things. But really, they're there to promote economic growth for the leagues, because by competitive balance, a lot of theorists say that that's what piques fan interest. That's what keeps people coming back. You know, it's a lot of loyalty required to hang on to a hopeless team forever. And I think we've seen some things that worked very well. Baseball with its revenue sharing and luxury taxes. For instance, when I first started teaching this course 8-9 years ago, and when I started looking at it, I always used to use the Kansas City Royals as kind of like my example of a team that just didn't go anywhere and didn't do anything. And suddenly, look what we've got. And we're talking about the Royals being a top contender this year. Basketball, where we have the draft lottery is a little different than what we see in other sports, but it does combine features of the reverse order draft and in with the other mechanisms that the NBA uses to maintain the competitive balance and some of the revenue sharing things. Football with the way it divides its revenues, and that's a classic reverse order draft, trying to get the best players to teams that have not had them and to balance things out that way. Free agency and the compensation for free agents, and so many different ways that leagues have chosen to go about maintaining this idea of competitive balance. And I think everyone had some really good discussions. I hope you maybe learned a few things that you didn't know or maybe affected your thinking. It's where we got a chance to be a little bit more like those sports fans I told us not to be like, and to be a little bit more passionate about how the on the field product looks. But I think you can see the importance to the business, to the economics of sports. And so we're going to move ahead this week to something that gets talked about a lot, particularly with Major League Sports, but it also comes into play with minor league stuff. And that is, what's the value of a team to a community? What's the market for teams? Why do people want to have a professional sports team in your community? What does it do for you? I happen to live about 20 miles from Hartford, Connecticut. And in Hartford, we have now, this coming season, a moved Double-A baseball team that is moving into a brand new, I think it's going to be about 6,000 seat stadium into what had been a very, very economically undeveloped part of the city. And a lot of the impetus for getting this franchise and move from a neighboring city, New Britain, where it had been for almost 30 years, maybe a little more than 30 years. And this new team, the Hartford Yard Goats, is coming in, and it's being touted as an engine of economic development for that entire neighborhood and that entire region. that this is going to be a way to bring people back downtown, to have other businesses grow up and thrive around it. And it's been a very interesting process to watch. So what I really need everyone to do this week is make sure you really read the material that's in from the Federal Reserve Board. It's inning 2, so we're backing up, we're jumping around a little bit. But go ahead and read that. That's going to give you a lot of feel for what it means to have a team in your community. Why do cities go out and compete with each other? Why did we see such a frenzy when we talked about the Rams leaving St. Louis and going back to Los Angeles? And finally, an old guy like me can finally call them the LA Rams again and feel comfortable about it. For me, it took forever to even accept that the Rams were in St. Louis. And now we have people calling them disloyal and moving away to Los Angeles, where some people are saying they're moving home. So, and despite the fact that they really started their existence in Cleveland. So this is a very interesting topic, and it's full of economic analysis, but it's easy to understand it. I'm sure you're going to have some strong opinions about it, and we'll come back to that next week. What I really wanted to talk about tonight is this midterm exercise, like I talked about it, and like I said, it's really timely. And what's really interesting about it, it's based on the NBA, and it's based on all the work that we've done up to this point. And we are right at the point of decision that I am asking you to look in this little theoretical case study, to look at yourself as the main character. But the whole idea is, what if you're the owner of a team that's right on the edge of making or missing the playoffs? And we're coming down to the last week, 10 days of the season. There's about 8 games left for some teams, 6 for others. It's pretty close. And there are a few teams that are out there that are just right on the edge of missing the playoffs. Well, what do? Do you push to get that 8th spot? Because, face it, in the West you're going to get the Warriors. In the East you're going to get the Cavaliers. What are your chances of getting out of that series alive? It's still in competition. Not very good in either case. But are there economic advantages to making the playoffs? Are there business advantages to making the playoffs? Where would this position you in terms of the draft and in the draft lottery? A whole bunch of considerations are there. So what I'm asking you to do is to put yourself in the shoes of the owner of that team that is in that right on that line, the 8th place team, the 9th place team. Do you want to go and make an all-out push to lock up that 8th playoff spot? Or are we going to do what some of the teams are being talked about as they jockey for position, teams that have already locked up their playoff spot, tanking a bit? Maybe not even a bit, tanking a lot. Play the rookies, play the subs, make sure we get in the lottery pick. That's what we want to look at. So your job is to take that scenario, look at it from the owner's perspective. Look at it as an economist would look at it as a business owner would look at it, and decide on what's best for your team, and then we'll map out a strategy. It's pretty self-explanatory, and I have to tell you that just by a happy accident, one of my former students, who was actually a baseball player for Post, happened to be sitting on a flight, cross-country flight. Kid lived in Arizona. And he ended up getting his ticket bumped up to first class, and he ended up sitting next to a gentleman who owned the Washington Wizards and the Washington Capitals. And he told him about the course he was taking, and he told him about this assignment. And this gentleman, whose name is Ted Leonsis, listened to him and told him it was an excellent question, and that his answer to what that was, to what he should do, what he would have his coach do, well, it depended on whether you were talking about basketball or hockey. So I would try to give you that answer after you've already done your paper. But that's the assignment for this week. Look at it. It's written out for you. I think you're going to find it interesting. No discussion this week. Great job last week. And I hope you're getting out of the course what you needed. I hope some of you had a chance to take a look at the article I posted right from the NCAA about the career path you might want to follow if you wanted to be an athletic director. I'm going to try to throw in the last 3 weeks here a few more items like that, so that maybe we can pick up some side information too that you weren't planning on, but it sure should help you as you think about your career in sport management. Okay, that's it for tonight. If you do have any questions, of course, please get to me. I really appreciate the work that you're doing in the discussion. I am getting an awful lot out of it. Hope you are too. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks again.